Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I'm going to do some Q&A specifically on footwear because I get many questions sent in to gentlemen in the comments, maybe they drop me an email, and I'm reluctant to give a short sort of text response. I would rather have the opportunity to elaborate on my views by doing a Q&A video. So if you want to send me a question, get to it, either a comment or an email. So let us begin, shall we? Now, my first question today comes from a gentleman called Michael, who poses me this query. Where do you place cowboy boots in the casual shoe category? One of your previous posts, you talk about the Ariat boot. I have a nice pair of dark brown Ariat cowboy boots. None of the traditional decorative features are visible under the leg of my trousers, but it's obviously a polished cowboy boot. Whilst I wouldn't wear them with a suit or when I wear an overcoat, I could see myself wearing them with a blazer and turtleneck sweater, maybe a pea coat, or with a Barber classic Beaufort jacket. These are at least comparable to suede chukka boots. What are your thoughts? Okay, well, great question, Michael. And it's one which is somewhat specific to the United States of America, because it is fair to say that the wearing of cowboy boots is not very common here in my country. And I speak with conviction for this because my wife is an equestrian, we own a couple of horses, and simply don't wear cowboy boots. We tend to wear the more practical horse riding boot, which has become prevalent more in Europe. However, that said, I think the cowboy boot has got an amazing heritage and a tradition, and as somebody who has travelled in my lifetime quite extensively in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and that part of the United States, I totally get it. I absolutely understand the fascination with Western wear and, you know, the hats, the boots. I fully buy into it. If I lived in that part of the world, I think you'd find me dressing in that way when I wasn't trying to be an intentionally well-dressed man and perhaps wearing a sports jacket and the like. But that is the point that you have raised. I think the cowboy boot is something which is, by its very nature, casual. Because let's be honest, it's a working piece of footwear. It's not designed in its original sense to be something which we wear out in a formal sense. However, I think, you know, those days of formality and certain things can only be worn in certain situations, I think they are largely behind us. So if you like the cowboy boot and you have a pair which is, I think you can carry it across with the style that you choose in your life. You know, as you say, maybe you're wearing chino trousers with a cowboy boot, maybe with, as you describe, a Barber jacket, a pea coat, you know, a turtleneck sweater. I don't see any problem with it at all. I think it's something which is highly appropriate in the part of the world where I'm assuming you're from. And yeah, go for it. I mean, if it works for you. What I would say is avoid falling into dressing like a caricature. So if you are from, I don't know, shall we say, Houston in Texas, every other guy will be dressing the same. Do not fall into the trap of, you know, just dressing in the standard cowboy style just because it's what everybody else does. Remember, an intentionally well-dressed man is somebody who follows an agenda for the way in which he dresses, whether to boost his self-confidence or to present an image to the people that he meets. Just keep that in mind and I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. Now the next couple of questions comes from Lloyd, who says to me, right, I've got two questions for your thoughts. First one, polishing shoes with second-rate kit. I travel from time to time with my work and naturally I do not transport my Saphir shoe polish with me. This means from time to time I have had to make do with cherry blossom or other second-rate polishes on my shoes. What would you recommend to get a decent shine in such circumstances where one has limited kit but a need to have a semi-decent result? Perhaps even a mirror shine if it's possible. Well, I find myself in just that situation very often, Lloyd, because I do travel for work quite a bit. You know, I'm a sort of professional well-being trainer, so I often go to various locations to deliver lectures to groups of people. And I am very much a believer in traveling with as little kit as possible. I'm a minimalist, all right? Even though I like to dress well, I like to take as little as I possibly can to allow myself to dress well. Now, I personally would not use Cherry Blossom or any of the other inferior quality products on a pair of shoes that I have previously applied sapphire polish to. There's a good reason for that. Sapphire polish is quite naturally based with natural waxes and oils. Polishes like Cherry Blossom inherently will have as their fundamental building blocks petroleum. All right, it's a petroleum-based product. So petroleum is a cutting agent. So if you were to use Cherry Blossom on top of sapphire polish, whilst it wouldn't be necessarily, traumatic if you just do it once in a while, it is going to remove what you've previously applied to a degree. All right, you're going to be taking off layers of the sapphire. In my mind, and this is what I do, I take a little bit of sapphire with me. Now this is what I do honestly, right? I get a bit of cling film, the see-through sort of food wrap that you get in typical people's kitchens. I get a layer of that, turn it over so it's double thickness. Then I'll get my sapphire polish and I will draw out a little, a couple of swirls of it on the end of a cloth, and I will dab it into that cling film clear, food wrapping. Then I'll sort of package it all up so that that sapphire polish, albeit, like a small smear of it, is super safe and contained within that little cling film paper. Then I will also take with me a couple of cosmetic cotton cloths. So these little cotton wool discs that ladies use to remove their makeup after a day of wearing it. That's what I polish my shoes with. So I'll throw a few of them in my bag. I'll take my little smear of sapphire polish, and I'll also take a cloth with me as well, typically, just a cloth from the kitchen. All of that will pack down into the space approximately the size of a matchbox. So you've got your shoe cleaning kit in, no space at all. Goes in the bag. Maybe I often put it in my my wash kit so that even if it did in some bizarre way, escape the wrapping that I put it in, it's not going to cause any significant damage. That way, when I get to my destination and I need to top up my mirror shine, I just get my little bit of polish, my cloth, I put it on there, buff it off, whatever you need to do, it's all to hand. And to be honest, when I'm traveling, I often go to cities. If the worst came to the worst and I needed a full revamp on my shoes, I'd simply go to, a shoe shine and get it done, or actually just buy a pot of polish if there was an emergency. But that's what I do. I wouldn't be putting Cherry Blossom on a shoe that I've already applied sapphire to. It's a suicide mission. Okay, your next question, excuse me, also from Lloyd, is I've recently acquired a pair of Chini Derby shoes. Now these don't have a toe cap, so I'm not sure how to tackle them. Should I just go for a general polish, or can I try a mirror shine? If so, where would you finish the mirror shine, given there's no toe cap to make a natural boundary with the rest of the shoe? Good question, Lloyd. You've got a pair of black cap toe Oxfords. You can see where the toe cap is delineated. That area at the front has that extra layer of leather, so it's not going to flex, it's not going to bend. You can, with some confidence, apply a mirror shine knowing it's not going to crack and flake off. With what I would describe a Gibson shoe, which doesn't have the delineation across the toe cap, or something like a hole cut would be the same. If you were to make that whole front part of the shoe, the front quarter of the shoe, a mirror shine, as soon as you walk, the shoe will flex at its natural breaking point with your foot, and whatever you've applied is going to crack and break off, because polish, whatever people tell you, it is not designed to flex in that manner. So, two options really. First option, you've already suggested it. Just go for a high gloss buffed polish, all right? Not mirror shine. Just apply several layers of polish to that shoe and it's going to be okay, all right? You're not going to build up enough polish that when your shoe breaks, it's going to crack. It's going to make a significant difference to the visual appearance of the shoe. What I would do, if you want desperately to have a mirror shine, wear the shoes a number of times before you even think about mirror shining them. Wear them 10 times. That way you will see where the leather is naturally flexing with your walking movement. You'll see the creases forming within the leather. Now, when you see that, you know that you can, with some confidence, apply a mirror shine forward of the frontmost crease, because your shoe isn't flexing or bending in that area. So that's what I would recommend. Wear it a few times and then mirror shine. Or just go for a high brush shine polish. No need to have a mirror shine on every pair of shoes you own. Sometimes it's nice not to have a mirror shine. That way it allows you to wear those shoes in slightly less formal situations. And if you've got a Gibson style shoe, or a Derby as you describe it, that's quite appropriate. You know, not all shoes are made for a mirror shine. Okay, next question from Hondo, who says, when you travel with your shoes, do you recommend bringing along your shoe trees? Well, kind of a two-part answer here. Yes and no. Right? As I've said, typically when I travel, I like to take as little kit as possible, because the less you're taking along, the less you've got to carry, and the less you've got to keep track of and pack up, and the less risk there is if you're traveling. If your baggage gets lost, you'll never see it again. So what I would do, I don't take a shoe tree. All right, when I get to my destination, your shoes are not going to significantly deteriorate in a week or so, maybe of business travel. However, if you're going away for a longer period and you are somewhat concerned that, you know, your shoes are likely to get damp and wet, and you want a shoe tree to make them retain their integrity and help them dry out, maybe you're traveling in the middle of the winter, maybe you're going for 2, 3, 4 weeks somewhere, then I would consider taking one of the less solid shoe trees. So maybe a shoe tree with just a wooden end piece with, you know, like one of the spring back ends to it. So you get most of the benefits from a shoe tree, but with less of the weight to carry around. So that's what I would go for. But naturally, my instinct would be not to take a shoe tree. It's just more stuff to carry around. And when we're traveling, that's the last thing you want. Next question. Okay, this comes from Derek, who says, I bought a pair of Grenson triple welt brogue shoes secondhand on eBay for $80. I knew they needed a resole when I bought them, so that wasn't a concern. I considered sending them back to the factory, but after the shipping estimate of $250 to $400, I decided it wasn't worth it, and I had a local cobbler recraft them for around $300. So my question is, Grenson, their history and their quality in comparison to brands like Trickers, Crockett & Jones. I have watched some videos and read from the Grenson website. However, there seems to be less information around Grenson in compared to others. Is Grenson a premium shoe brand, or have they slipped down the rankings? Great question, sir. I own, I think I'm going to say 4 pairs of Grenson shoes, maybe even 5. And Grenson are a heritage company which were at the very top of the tier, maybe going back in the last century. They were worn by the likes of Cary Grant and many of the stars of the day who would beat a path to Savile Row to be dressed in the very sharpest, most up-to-date suits and styling, and the Grenson shoe was very much part of that look. However, it is fair to say that over the years, they did start to enter a death spiral. Many factories making shoes from that era went out of business. So the fact that Grenson is still around shows that they are something of a success. Now, they did change hands, and I think it was around about 2010. They were really in danger of disappearing. And they were bought by a man called Little. I forget his first name, but his name was Little. And when he took over, he took the brand in a bit of a different direction. They became a little more fashion forward, and they started producing products with triple welting, with different and quite garish colours. He did what he had to do to keep the brand viable and going forwards. In so doing, they lost some of their traditional appeal to many gentlemen of that era. Now, it is fair to say, Grenson have still got a shop on Jermyn Street in London, and every time I visit that street, I always look in through the window. I always admire their shoes, as a person who owns 4 or 5 pairs of their shoes myself. However, most of my shoes were purchased from, shall we say, the late 90s, maybe the early 2000s. So my shoes come from what I would describe as very much their traditional era. And they are well made, Goodyear welted shoes, made up in Northamptonshire. They are a pleasure to own. But it would be fair to say, since they've become a little more contemporary, they are not considered to be in the same light as Trickers, Crockett & Jones, maybe even Cheney & Barker. They are now at the Cheney and Barker level at best. I would say their prices reflect that. They are not as, keenly priced as, say, Trickers, Crockett and Jones and Churches. However, that's good for us. As a second-hand purchaser, as you've described here, they can be picked up far more cheaply on sites like eBay and Vinted because they don't have the profile that these other brands still enjoy. So whilst they are great shoes, you've done well to get them cheaply. You've done well to get them recrafted for that price. They should last you well into the future. But in essence, to answer your question, to be honest, no, they're not at the same level as those shoe brands which are really at the top. The royal warrant holders, like Trickers, as you say, in Crockett and Jones, who are, I would say at the moment, the pinnacle of the pyramid of men's shoe style. So, a final question, bit of a bonus here, nothing to do with shoes. And I thought I'd chuck this one in just because, why not? Mark from Newfoundland has written to me and said, in these crazy, tumultuous times, it enjoys me to watch your channel. How do you relax? I was thinking the other day, what is your favourite music genre or artists? Just to give us an idea. Well, okay, Mark, I don't mind telling you that. I was born in 1970, so I was growing up in the 1980s and the 1990s. And you know what? I read somewhere the other day that as you grow up through life, your enjoyment of music tends to be limited to the period when you were in your 20s and late teens, because you will always remember that as your music, because that's when people tend to become more interested in music and it forms a bigger part of their life. And for me, very much the case. So my favourite sort of bands are the power bands from the 1990s, late 1980s. Particular favourites for me are things like Duran Duran. Definitely one of my favourites. I also like Def Leppard, if you like a bit of light, heavy music, and lots of groups like that from that era. I like a broad spectrum of music. If you want to know what my favourite all-time music track is, which I often go to when I'm looking for a bit of inspiration in my life, I might have said this before on the channel, it is Ordinary World by Duran Duran. Now I can't play it here because it would demonetize this video, but go and track it down, listen to that, listen to the words. The words actually tell a story, and I often resonate with that track when I hear it, and I might play it twice a week in my life when I need it, and I have done that since the mid 1990s, no, the early 90s, when I first heard it when I was living in Germany at the time. So there we go, bonus question, a little bit of a deep dive on your host today. Well, that's it today. I hope you enjoyed those questions. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more like this, subscribe. But also, if you want to contribute a question, be it on shoes or on any wider aspect of the subjects I cover here on the Chap's Guide channel, drop it into the comments, or even better, send me an email directly. Then I'll gather them up and we will have a Q&A video like this once every so often. If you'd like to practically support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, one-off thing, or become a patron. I make extra videos for my patrons, and I've got a bit of a more personal relationship going with those guys over on my Patreon pages, the links to which you will find in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care, keep those shoes clean, polished, and looking good, and I'll see you again very soon.